onions, cheese, stock, and bread. 4 simple ingredients that become a transcendent bowl of soup. In this classic French recipe, onions are slowly caramelized to bring out their natural sweetness and cooked in a rich beef stock. And when topped with a crouton and melted cheese, this simple soup is perfect if you're craving something warm and hearty. And it's good all times of year. To start with, we're using big yellow onions. And what I do is peel them and cut them in half this way, top down. And then slice them like this into thin pieces. It makes a very nice presentation in the soup, and it's a little bit unusual rather than slicing them that way. This is a very pretty presentation. So we'll need 2 pounds of yellow onions. And if the onions are large and glorious, such as these, you'll need probably 4 of these. My garden is full of great onions, and I love making onion soup. Now, 4 tablespoons of butter in a heavy pot like this with a wide bottom. This is an 8-quart enameled cast iron. I love cooking in something like this because they have to get really, really caramelized to get that dark, perfect onion soup. So add your onions and start them cooking down. This takes quite a long time, about an hour. It's that caramelization process, that cooking down of the onions that really starts the soup tasting the way it should. As soon as they start to exude a little bit of their moisture, add 1 teaspoon of just granulated sugar. This helps speed up the caramelization process. This helps color the onions, giving it that sort of nutty brown color that is very desirable. I also add a little bit of olive oil just to keep the butter from burning. Stir, 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 cook, cook, cook. Now I do have a swap out of this so that we don't have to stand here for an hour. Now can you believe 2 pounds of onions have cooked down to this? It did take an hour, but they are exactly the way you want them. And now onto the hot onions in the hot pan, add 1 tablespoon of flour. This flour is the thickening agent for the final soup. It doesn't make it a real thick soup, you don't want that, but you want a little bit of thickness because we're adding about 3½ cups of stock. So cook down the flour. As soon as the flour is cooked, add a ½ cup of sherry. You could add cognac, you could add white wine. Sherry is traditional. And you'll see the adding of the liquid actually helps you scrape up that foam that is in the bottom of your pot. That is the brown bits. That's the color for your final soup. So you want all of that scraped up. And I'm using one of my favorite wooden spoons, the flat bottom spoon, because it really does allow you to scrape without hurting your pot. Okay, so this looks really good. And already there's a little creaminess because of that flour. And now add your stock. This is a thick, rich, homemade beef stock. It's very gelatinous. Can you see the lumps? That's just the natural gelatin in the cold stock. I keep quarts of stock like that in my freezer so that when the mood strikes me and I have the right onion, I will make my onion soup. Now add 2 teaspoons of thyme leaves. Fresh thyme leaves are best. Season with a large pinch of salt. You'll have to adjust that seasoning. So now bring this to a boil, reduce the heat to a simmer. If all your ingredients are added and everything looks like this, a nice dark brown color, just simmer for 30 minutes and your soup is done. Really, really important to use good quality ingredients. It will certainly make a difference in the flavor and the appearance of the soup. We have the soup ready to ladle. I love these. These are traditional onion soup bowls from France. You can use this kind or this. This has a handle. This has the 2 little ears. This is traditionally how it's served in a French restaurant or in France. A regular soup bowl will do if you don't have that. It's a little messy because those onions are long pieces, but divide this evenly And actually, my favorite part of the soup is what's around the outside when it's finished. I like sitting there in the restaurant pulling that off, or at home just pulling off the excess melted cheese. And each soup bowl gets 3 ounces of a mixture of fontina, Gruyere, and Swiss cheese. If you want to serve a larger crowd or you want to put some of this soup in the freezer, I suggest making 2 times this recipe. You can wipe up a little bit. And now for the topping. This is French bread, a baguette cut on an angle. You'll need 2 of these. According to the recipe, you'll need them cut about 3/4 of an inch thick. The bread gets very soggy and kind of incorporates itself into the soup. So now, 4 ounces of Gruyere divided evenly. This is delicious, this topping, and the 3 kinds of cheeses really add a lot to the final dish. And some fontina. You could use all Gruyere if you like. That's pretty traditional. Or you could use Swiss. All fontina is a little strong. And here's the Swiss. And I hope some of it melts down the sides. Use it all. You've grated it, you deserve it. Preheat your broiler so that it's at its hottest. This is going to go right into the oven under the broiler, just until the cheese is melted and a beautiful, beautiful brown. Placing your bowls on a rimmed baking sheet will allow you to more easily transport the soup bowls to the oven. Also will prevent a lot of nasty cleanup afterward, because if this bubbles over, we'll have a mess. Watch it. You don't want it to burn, but you do want it to melt and get a beautiful crusty brown. They're very, very hot. Be very, very careful. And the way I like to serve these, straight out of the oven on a plate, so that you don't have to touch the little soup pot. Piece of delicious baguette. That is lunch, first course, or snack. Just the thing to make when you want to warm up on a cold day.